Hello and welcome back to the OnlyAccies podcast. Later on in today's episode, we will be previewing this weekend's game against Raith Rovers. But before we go into that, there has been massive news coming out of Accies for the last few weeks, and it has all culminated in the news that Colin McGowan now has a controlling stake in our club. Now, understandably, Accies fans are angry and also worried in equal measure, so we've got plenty to discuss before we get to the game. Joining Brandon and myself this week is Stephen, a lifelong Accies fan, but also joined by Robbie, a lifelong Raith Rovers fan. So guys, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Stephen, we'll come to you first. The takeover news that was announced the day before a game, late one night, and you know, Accies fans are in bed with a takeover. 3 parties interested, and all this. It's fair to say some fans were kind of filled with a little bit of hope. You know, you never know what could happen, but then in equal measure, plenty of fans were very sceptical about this news. What were your initial reactions when that was posted?
Oh, my initial reactions were I was a wee bit cynical about it. I don't think it was, I mean, for me, a takeover and selling a club means that you no longer have the club and you no longer have any influence in the club, and that's you're walking away. But I don't, from reading between the lines, I'm not sure. I don't think this is what this is. And I really don't know what Colin McGowan's role would be after that. So he controls the stadium company as is. So is it the football club that's being sold and not the stadium company, or is it the whole thing together? That's important. If it's only the football club, then in a sense, it's no change. He still controls all the major income streams, all of that. And there's some other people that he likes, his pals, that can control the football club, and hopefully they'll know about football, because he obviously doesn't, given what he said. So it could actually be not much changing, really, if we get decent people in who will buy Ronnie McDonald's stake in it. But the way he was saying in his statement recently did he not say something about, Alan Maitland and all these people will remain?
Yeah.
So if they're remaining, then it seems to me, I mean, I'm not a business person, but it seems to me that all that's happening is that Ronnie McDonald's shares are going to somebody else, and they'll have to go to somebody else who's going to be pals with everybody anyway, and things will remain status quo like. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, to be honest. And Brandon, I feel a bit silly asking if you're sceptical about something, but when this news was announced, me and you had some long phone calls about it. What were your thoughts on that when that came out as well?
Well, obviously, when it first initially came out, as you said, it was released the day before a game, which in its own sense is extremely weird timing for something to be leaked to the press. I think reading between the lines of the actual article when it was talked about that there was a potential takeover, a lot of things didn't add up. For the sort of Sun to know all that information, and for them to know that there's potentially two candidates looking at buying Accies, and to know that in depth, the fact that it said Colin McGowan will still be involved within the club, that says to me that it would probably have been Colin that passed information on to the Sun, because him mentioning that he's going to be involved and coming out a day before a game isn't really someone that would have much football savviness to do. So that sort of screamed out to me that, yeah, it was probably Colin that leaked it to the press. But obviously, we're still at the stage at that point where we were a bit unsure of what could happen. A lot of people were talking about potential different buyers. I think the name that was mentioned the following day at the game by a lot of different fans was Les Hutchison. So although I was extremely sceptical about the whole scenario, there was a sort of bit in your mind that had a bit of optimism, hoping that, well, it's been, from a fan's point of view, we've been so secluded, we've been so sort of distant from our club of recent years, so surely it couldn't be any worse. So if someone different that was sort of football orientated was to come in, then it would have been good news. But as the last few weeks have transpired, that certainly hasn't been the case, and we saw the way in which it appears to be going down.
I mean, you both mentioned potential people coming in to buy. That was a different article came out. I believe it was United States and Cyprus. These people were supposedly coming from. Now, listen, I think the question I have to ask is, A, do you guys even believe that story, because I certainly don't. I don't believe there's three people from abroad interested in buying Hamilton Accies. So,
well, remember, people from China as well were apparently beforehand.
That's true. The Chinese consortium are interested. Stephen, do you believe that news about these United States, Cyprus people being interested?
Well, I mean, if you think that the Sun's going to be accurate, or I mean, the Sun isn't exactly a great source of. Let's be honest, I wouldn't even, look at it. But anyway, no, I think all these things are rumor. The rumor mill goes. I mean, I think the rumor mill is amazing anyway, but in football, it's mental. I mean, it's absolutely mental. So I'll believe it when I see it. It's like. Scott Gardner, one of our best fans. I mean, I remember there were so many rumours about getting a stadium when we were homeless, and he just put in his website or in the press or something, I'll believe it when I'm sitting depressed in it. And that's how I feel about it. I'll believe it when I'm sitting depressed in it that we've got, that somebody's taken over. But I mean, the problem we have is that I feel completely powerless, and I've always felt this with football. I mean, I was involved 20 years ago with the Watson scenario and all of that. And I realised then that unless fans own a club, you're basically like some kind of serf. It's like, I don't know, you're like some serf in the medieval lord is Colin McGowan, and we've got absolutely no say. He's got calls all the shots. He's got all the power. He can do whatever he likes, from just closing the club down and building flats on it, the Raith Rovers scenario, or whatever. And that's what frustrates me and makes me concerned. It's that lack of control. You don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know who he's got in the sides to come in. You don't know whether the club's viable.
And we keep getting told about how, from everybody involved with the club, that the club will never go bust. The club will not, and we're told in Colin McGowan's recent statement, which we'll go into in a minute, about that as well. That doesn't fill me with any ease at all. That doesn't ease my worries about our club being fed this line over and over again, if I'm honest with you. But you mentioned these comments about Raith Rovers, so it's a perfect time to bring Robbie in.
Yeah, good segue.
Good segue, thank you, Robbie.
Yeah. So I started getting involved with Raith about 2004, 2005-ish, which was the time that Colin McGowan was at the club. I did a bit of research beforehand, because at that point I was only very baby-faced myself. I was only 16 at that point. And effectively what had happened is everyone knows that in the 1990s, Raith Rovers had the most successful period. We obviously beat Celtic in the Coca-Cola Cup, the League Cup in 1994, 1995. We go in Europe, and then we get caught up in the hubris of the SPL having to have a 10,000-seater stadium, the rules that go along with that. So we spent a huge amount of money to try and get promoted. And then by the early 2000s, it was effectively the case that the club in about, it was 2003 or so, we were reaching that sort of breaking point. And in 2003, it's funny just listening to what you said there, Ben, because we did get the assurance in the paper that the club, the stadium, was effectively separated from the club, much like has happened with Accies. And we were given the assurance in our local courier that Raith Rovers would never be evicted from Starks Park. So that was back in 2003, 17th of September, if we're being specific. Now, fast forward 2 years later, we've then got the situation with West City Developments, which was fronted by Colin McGowan. Also had Turnbull Hutton involved, albeit I think he's obviously, the late Turnbull Hutton had a bit of a change of heart, and he was involved later on with Raith, where effectively they were saying, yeah, we're going to bulldoze the stadium and build houses on it if you don't take over the club. There was a few bids that came in. Some businessmen locally tried to buy the club, but that didn't go through because they didn't feel comfortable with where we're going. And even if you look back, if you look at the club now, the ownership of the club for Raith, there's an interesting point on the Raith Trust website where they've actually got a breakdown of the club because it's two separate entities. You've got Starks Park Properties, which was formerly West City Developments, and you've also got the club itself. And it's so fragmented, it looks like it's something that a nuclear physicist would need to break down. It's crazy how broken down it is. And that all started throughout that period. Now, obviously, I don't know Colin McGowan myself personally. I was only 16 at this time that was going through. What I did note was Stephen saying, obviously, you feel helpless. What I would say is, I think that the Accies fans at the moment are doing the right thing. They're trying to mobilise. They're trying to get a bit of interest in it. People are becoming more aware. We were very fortunate in that we had people like Ronnie Coyle step into the fray, a former player, the late Ali Gourley as well. People, supporters groups like Fife's Finest, who are one of the larger supporter groups at the time, they were organised certain gigs and things, local bands to come in, and they raised a lot of money doing that. And believe it or not, we actually got very fortunate because obviously one of our more famous fans is Gordon Brown. Now, for all Gordon Brown's faults as a politician, and he's obviously not a very popular person in Scotland nowadays, we got very, very lucky, and he acted as somewhat of a power broker to be able to organise and mobilise fan groups to make a sort of coordinated response where we could get the 600,000, 700,000 to be able to, what was called reclaim the Rovers. And yeah, we got very, very fortunate. And I think that's the sort of lay of the land. Accies are obviously at the very beginning of that process at the moment, where people are becoming more interested. And I don't want to see any club in Scotland go under. I know obviously Accies, in terms of the situation, is very similar to ourselves when we started off. But I really do hope that it can get to a position where it is fan owned and fan based. And I know it's a long road. It's very difficult, but I hope that that's something that can happen.
Yes, so do we. Trust me, it's like you said, it's going to be a long, long road. It's quite nice actually because we've been kind of publicly backed by Raith Rovers fans about when the news came out.
Yep.
So that's been good to see fans of other clubs kind of noticing our situation as well.
Mm-hmm. You'll not find, I think, any Rovers fan that has been involved at that time. I did notice on Twitter the Tifo Rosso Bianco, I think it is, the Accies account. They've been doing sort of lots of posts about the situation. You've got obviously Rudy Grenfell as well. I noticed he had a bit in from the Accies Supporters Association, I think it is, out in the paper sort of saying what's going on. We need to get a bit of clarity about the direction the club's taken and how we move forward with this. So the response, because I retweeted one of the points about it, and the response from Rovers fans is obviously, we'll show complete solidarity with you. We will back you to the hilt and try and help you as much as possible.
Something you mentioned there about was people coming in and people bidding and then them not being confident to hand the club over. Now, what we've been fed in the press is that they are looking for the proper custodian to hand the club over to. Now, I'm interested in what people think a proper custodian means, because I've not got a clue. As a proper custodian, a football guy, football people that will have football as the main focus of the club? Is it somebody who will be a friend of Colin McGowan and it's an easy transfer over and he remains in power? Brandon, I know you've got a lot of thoughts on this. What constitutes a proper custodian in your eyes?
Well, I think a proper custodian is different to several different people. I think in terms of the statement that was released, I think the proper custodian will be someone that does everything what he's told, and that's it really. Unfortunately, this is meant to have been the most successful period of our football club's history, which we're fed all the time. But within that period of time, our support has dwindled more than half. How does that make any sense? How can you go through your most successful period of your history, but your support just year after year constantly dwindles after dwindles? Something obviously is going wrong there, and I think it's obvious to see that the issue is rooted at the very centre, where the interaction between fans and club is non-existent. The football club, the football department, should we say, is all the fans, and we're told, I think Colin McGowan was the one that initially used that terminology, actually, was football department, is seen to be always second in mind, and that's the fortunate thing. If the football side of things was given more time and effort, and if it was given a better marketing, if it was given better advertising, if it was given what was seen to be more effort, or if they even came out and gave clarity on what they've done behind the scenes to sort of show the fans this is what we've done. But we never get any information. We just seem to be a hindrance. And if they had done all that, and if they maybe tried to sort of build bridges and gave an action plan of how they're going to do better in the future and how they're going to interact with the football department, I think this would be a much better transition. But I think it'd be a much easier process for some of us to handle. But I think with the response that we've seen to the ASA's article in the paper, it was just sort of regurgitated pish, if I'm putting it like that, we've read the year. There was no, within that statement, there was nothing that sort of put my mind at ease. There was nothing that sort of made me think, well, fair enough, this is what's going to happen. So we kind of need to live with it, but there's hopefully bridges to be built. We've attempted to build these bridges so many times and it just keeps seeming to fall down. And the platform's been given to sort of build the bridges and to sort of give them the information of how to better things and how to have a better relationship with the fans and how fans want to perceive, how fans perceive things and what would be beneficial for them to do to make the fans actually think, well, wait a minute, maybe they do care about the football team. But it's just constantly the football clubs, the football team, should I say, is always seeming to be second compared to other activities, which, don't get me wrong, have no issues with charity. I don't think any human being has any issue with charities. It's unfortunate when your football club is used as sort of the name other than used alongside it in the same sort of levels with other activities are, because at the end of the day, we are a football club.
Yeah, and that was one of the main focuses of the EASA article when it was put out, was no fan has an issue with charity. Like, no fan has an issue. I'm sure we've all been involved in a charity in some way or another throughout our lives. We just want the football club focus to be on football. That's what it boils down to. We want football people in charge and a football team that is focused fully on football, and not to have our name used in these other ventures.
But even when you actually see the levels that these activities get to and the sort of publicity they get and the advertising and the marketing that goes into them, even being on par with that, because if we're being honest, the levels of all that compared to the football club is night and day. So if they've got the staff in the football club to do all this marketing, to do all this advertising, to put all this effort into the extra activities, why not have the same level to the football team? How can that? It's with all this negative press that the board are getting about how sort of distant they are with them and the fans. Surely if you get someone that's putting in all that time and effort for the extra activities, why not try and build the bridges by doing it with the football team as well? It mind boggles me.
Yeah, can I just come in there? I just agree with everything you said, Brandon. I think you want a custodian who cares about football first and foremost. When Ronnie came in, which was before Colin McGowan came in, which was a bit inaccurate in one of his statements, I think. But when they came in, was it 2003, something like that? They did do a lot of talking. They did do a lot of meeting fans. They did a lot of that. And we were a lot. Accies fans were a bit more active then. We'd stepped in. We'd had an election campaign putting up a candidate in 1999. We'd had lots of fundraising to pay players' wages because they weren't getting paid, and they went on strike in 2000. 1st of April 2000. So they came in and they said they made all the right noises. And Ronnie was quite a charismatic figure. There's no doubt about that. That was 20 years ago now, though. I mean, it's quite incredible to think it's that length of time. But we need somebody who can come in and sell that club. Now, when I was even younger than you guys, maybe I wasn't, I don't know, but I wrote a 6-page letter to Fulston about what they needed to do, because he came out in the press and said, Accies might as well move to East Kilbride because we've not got any fans. And I just wrote my letter and said, you've not got any fans. Why have you not got any fans? Because you don't engage with anybody. You don't engage with the community. You don't engage with business properly. And the problem is, if you engage with business, you've got to be somebody that businesses want to engage with and want to be associated with and want to work with. And you've got to work hard at that. And you can't just parachute yourself into Hamilton and say, right, we're so-and-so. We don't really know anybody from Hamilton. We're not really interested. That's fine. You should have kids from schools in there all the time. You should have people going in talking to schools. You should be going round and round and round all the businesses in the area. You should have a lottery in the town centre. There's loads of things you could be doing more than they have done. But we need people in there that actually are football minded first and foremost. And I think I'd like to see them controlling the purse strings, them being in charge. Now, ideally it would be us, but actually, to be honest, I do fear that we don't have enough supporters left anymore. I mean, some of the people, the most involved people in those campaigns of the past are nowhere near the ground anymore. They don't come because they put all this effort into getting rid of Watson and getting a new regime. And then they looked at the new regime and thought, oh, we're still not really getting any power. We're still not really getting any control. And they walked. And a lot of us, some of us haven't walked, but we're getting on a bit, some of us like me. And don't know if I've got the energy to do what we did before. Plus, we need to know that we've got a chance of success. So I'd like to maybe if we could maybe try and identify people that we knew who could put money in or who could maybe legitimately actually buy the club, actually buy everything. That would be good. Or, whatever. I mean, I remember, for example, when Watson was ousted in the mid-90s, 96, 97, we had a game at Ayr United at Motherwell, and the then guy in charge of the club, Alistair Dogood, who was with a guy called Campbell, who was a big construction guy. We got together with him, and I'm not kidding you, we illegally fly-posted throughout Hamilton and Motherwell Accies v Ayr United at Fir Park this day, this time. It was mental. I thought, this is mad. And Accies chief executive got out with a glue brush and post. Anyway, we had a huge crowd. We had, I think, 5,000 at it. But the bonding there was with that was incredible because we knew he cared. We knew he was interested. He really passionately cared. That's what you need. And I hope we can get back to that. I really do.
I think it is quite interesting because obviously you'll know yourself, Stephen, that in terms of especially the early 2000s, I think due diligence in terms of football club owners was not what it is now.
I don't even know if it's that good now, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say earlier on as well, I hope that Claude Anelka's not got about £600,000 kicking about because that was bad enough for us. I wouldn't wish that on any club. The Rovers board recently have actually taken a bit of stick. They've been done a tremendous job off the park, but the communication from the club has been quite almost lackadaisical at times. And there was a feeling for a few weeks that we weren't doing the best on that front. And then Dunfermline came out with their statement about from Thomas Meggle about Peter Grant and how the fans needed to get behind the team. And then you had the Falkirk Q&A. And I think there's definitely levels in terms of Scottish football. You look at Motherwell and the output that they do in social media, and it's second to none. You've got a club like Raith that are maybe a bit middling, not really the greatest. And you've got clubs that maybe won't really communicate, they won't put the effort in. And then you've got clubs like Dunfermline and Falkirk, where it genuinely looks like they're scuttling a ship. It's incredible how backwards the communication with the fans is. And it's absolutely vital because obviously now more than ever, you're up against your Sky, you've got the Old Firm on your doorstep, obviously. It's you've got BT, you've got international leagues, all these forms of different football that are available. It's obviously oversaturated. And like you say, the marketplace is shrinking for football fans in Scotland. It's all about how I think overall clubs need to look in terms of more how they can engage with communities and how to get people involved. So yeah, I think that's not just a situation unique to Hamilton. I think it is across the board. Scottish football teams need to do a bit more in terms of engagement and try to figure out how we can get the newer generations along.
Absolutely.
Our club's been notoriously bad at that for many, many years. I mean, you only need to look at the history and look. Accies were a top team in Scotland until the Second World War, and since then it's been terrible. But if you look at the boards of directors since then, none of them have been very good at this. Mm-hmm. And when Ronnie came in, there was a definite sea change of just activity. Alan Maitland was the manager. He talked to everybody. Even just a couple of seasons ago, I was at St Mirren, and Alan Maitland came up and talked to us about the squad and all of that. You think, right, why don't they do that all the time? It's like, what worries me is the signals I'm picking up are that the people, I don't know if you guys, Ben and Brandon, would agree with this, but they've gone very quiet. When was the last time Les Gray said something? When was the last time Alan Maitland said something. It's all Colin McGowan. And I think I think that Maitland and Les Gray would relate to us a lot better if they made an effort. But what worries me is, why are they not making an effort? And if you think of the psychology of that, are they just not happy? Is there nothing that they could say that's positive that they could say? That's what worries me. If people say nothing, it's usually because, well, there's a reason for it, I think. It's not positive, I would argue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think hearing from, it's been mentioned a few times on social media, but hearing from Maitland and Les Gray a bit more would, I don't want to say ease any worries, because it wouldn't, but it would be good to hear from them more often and about their opinions on kind of what's happening with the club now. You mentioned, Stephen, just before there about Ronnie McDonald coming in and that, and something that's been thrown out by a few fans is the fact that he is given his shares to Colin McGowan. It's been suggested by some fans that the legacy he's created over the last 20 years has been somewhat undone. I'm interested, Stephen, in your opinion on that first, just having
yeah, well, my gut feel was, yes, it probably has been, or it could be. But then a slight glimmer of hope is that we do have a higher profile than we've ever had as Accies in Scottish football at the moment. And if you analyse Colin McGowan's statement, he's trying to be as positive as he can be. So he hasn't come out and said, and if you don't get, we're going to build flats on Douglas Park, because we've got a high profile. So there's a wee bit of hope that maybe he's 68 now. So he was a lot younger when he was at Raith Rovers. Maybe, just maybe, he's mellowed enough to actually put the football club first and not be quite as brutal as that. I don't know. But certainly Ronnie was come in really well. He was a football person. I spoke to him at a friendly we had at Bellsell Athletic just after he came in. Great to speak to all of that. I'm hopeful that he's not stupid. I'm hopeful that he has given his shares to Colin McGowan with at least some kind of, I don't know, guarantee that his legacy is going to be protected. Because if anything, if you know anything about Ronnie, he does like to come across well. He does like to be well thought of. So you've got to hope that that's the case. But the proof of the pudding's in the eating, as they say. If things do go really badly from now on, then I think you have to say to Ronnie, where was your judgment? Why sell to him? Why do that? Why not find somebody else to take your role? I mean, they did say, did they not, that he was going to pass on his shares to his son, and that hasn't happened. So there's probably the reason for that is his son maybe just isn't interested or hasn't got the same, abilities, or isn't just as motivated. Fine, but find somebody that's a safe pair of hands for the football club, and that's what concerns me. He's given it to Colin McGowan. Let's just hope that he knows something that we don't know, but we'll see.
And Brandon, what are your opinions on Ronnie McDonald's legacy perhaps being corrupted or ruined, as some people are saying?
I mean, as Stephen says, it'll really depend on how things go before you can fully make that judgment. But I certainly don't think he's done himself any favours by being so distant of the recent years.
Yep.
And then the first real sense of him, or the first real sort of communication we hear that Ronnie's involved is that he's given the club to Colin. So I think that's probably the biggest frustration from majority fans, is that he did create such a great legacy, and he was such a it was so evident at the initial part of his sort of tenure. Obviously he's in his 70s, so it does make sense why he perhaps wasn't as sort of present as such. But let's not beat about the bush. The past couple of years, regardless of us being in the top flight, have been brutal. Fans have dwindled. There's been no real interaction with the club and fans, and it's not been pretty to watch both on and off the park. And now this is coming to fruition that he's given the club to Colin. You need to hope he knows what he's doing. As Stephen says, you won't make your decision if he's completely around his legacy until you actually find out how it pans out. But you'd hope that with the levels of involvement he was at the start, and the great work that he has done, and the levels he did take us to, that he wouldn't just hand over something like that if he knew it was going to burn to the ground. So I have my doubts, of course. I think you'd be daft not to have your doubts, but I won't make my full-on judgment if he's ruined his legacy until I see how it pans out. Aye.
I mean, he was the man, didn't he? He brought, the stadium was not in good repair, did it up a bit. He put an artificial pitch down, then he changed that to grass. Then we put another artificial pitch down and then another one. So he's invested in that. But like I say, you know, it's been an interesting club to take over because you've got that rental income, or you had that rental income every single year, nearly £300,000 for doing nothing. I mean, that, in terms of football finance, I mean, Rovers I've got a lot of time for Rovers. I've got a lot of fans. They're really, you know, they're very passionate and everything. But if you had 275 grand coming in every week for every month, sorry, every year, which it was every week, every year, and all you've got to do is just sit there. That's got to be attractive, and not always to have the right people coming. So that's what concerns me, that we're now in a situation where that isn't there. So what's going to happen?
I think on you go, Robbie, sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think one of the things from a Rovers perspective is one of the problems that's hamstrung us over the last few years has been the stadium. It's because it's been split off from the actual football club itself. We've had almost like the mortgage to pay on that. So that's been real problematic for us, I'd feel, over the last few years. But that's been a long-term decision that was being made. Obviously, Colin McGowan was involved in that, but other directors as well were also involved. So it's not just sort of a sole decision. But yeah, it is one of those things where it has been a factor, definitely.
I think on that note, that's another thing that's obviously with a lot of the fans has been a huge worry, is the exact same scenario seems to be happening with us. In the initial sort of article that came out, it was made very clear that the stadium and the club were two completely different entities, and should a potential buyer come in, it would be the football club that were coming in to buy. It wouldn't be the stadium, because the football club and the stadium are owned by two completely different companies. Well, I say two completely different companies, two different companies. They're not completely different because they have similar owners or similar directors. So that's a big worry in a lot of fans.
Well, yeah, you're right, Brandon. I mean, I remember, I don't know if you won't remember this, but Jock Brown came up with a consortium to try and buy the club before Ronnie did, but he didn't have any money. He was an Accies fan, but he didn't have a huge amount of money. So what he was going to do was take over the club, sell the stadium to anybody that would buy it, and then run the football club on a shoestring. And at least that would have wrestled control from Jim Watson and his cronies, which would have been a good thing. But I remember at a fans' meeting saying to him, Jock, what you're really asking us to do is sell our family silver and sell our future for the present. He said, yeah, that's all we can do. We're desperate. Now, like Rovers, with Accies, the amount of clubs, if you go to Company's House and look at the clubs, it's an absolute nightmare. It's hard to make head nor tail of anything. And yes, the stadium is obviously income generates because there are other businesses in it. So that's the bit that's profitable, or could be profitable, without having a football club in it, if you've got the right people in charge. So that's what worries me, that you're going to have the people in charge there that just want it for the money. And the football club's just an add-on. The stadium doesn't income generate for the club. It income generates for the people that own the stadium. Now, what you want to do is have your assets working for the football club. And that's what concerns me going forward. I'd like either, obviously, utopia would be fan ownership, with if we could quadruple our fan base or whatever, or maybe 10 times it, that would be great. But somebody coming in to buy the whole thing who actually is just a football fan. Sometimes I'm ancient, but I do sometimes still go to my bed at night and fantasize about winning the Euro lottery and buying Accies and giving it to the fans. But who wouldn't want to do that? We need, if there could be somebody there that could do that, you just never know. But it's not looking likely. I mean, that is fantasy land. But I do think the whole idea of having a stadium company and a club, it's fraught. It's potentially not healthy. I think it's been that way for a while.
It has always been the case,
Yep.
as I can remember. And as we keep hearing in the sort of, and all this media that is repeated to us over and over again, is that the things that happen within the stadium make so much money for the football club, and it's all these non-footballing activities that are seemingly generating all this money for the football club, which obviously makes you believe that makes you wonder, well, that's obviously why they're putting all this time and effort into these extracurricular activities, because it's generating so much income. But it just mind boggles me why, if you're marketing so much for these activities, why not do it for the football side of things and make money both sides? And that's where I think we're going wrong, is because the football people are no longer at the level of interest they were at the start.
Yep.
And that's why we're seeing all these extra activities more relevant than the footballing ones now. If we bring someone in to work alongside McGowan, that he's saying that that's the only way it's going to go down. So if we bring someone that genuinely is football minded and football orientated, surely it can only have a beneficial, it can only be a benefit to the club and the fans.
We don't have a lot of control over anything, but if the person coming in is at least really, really motivated about football, then hopefully that will make a difference, because we desperately need that. We need a fresh injection of charisma, I would say, somebody who can sell it, who can talk to the press, who can say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and actually do it. Not an Anelka type person, but somebody that actually knows what they're doing. I think that would be good. And hopefully, just hopefully, it might be was it Les Hutchison or something? I mean, I think that's just could be wishful thinking, because I think he is a football guy. But who knows? If Ronnie, hopefully Ronnie might have had somebody in mind, and that maybe this giving the shares to Colin McGowan is an interim thing, and Ronnie has maybe hopefully known that one of those people that are interested is actually genuine and actually would take the club forward. That's about the best we can hope for, I think. So I think Brandon just spot on there.
We need someone to come in and engage with the fans, someone that will bring in a new lease of life into both the football club, is just everything about the football club, the team, the fans, the atmosphere, just everything. And I think that's all we can hope for. And with all this negative press that's happening and now, maybe makes them actually realise, right, well, we need to do something here, and we need to interact with the fans, and we need to prove that we're not just in this for the name of the football club, and we want to do good for everybody. But I'll hold my breath.
Well, let's look ahead to the weekend's game then. Let's do what the club should be doing and focus on the football. Robbie, there was a bit of, I don't want to say fear, but Raith obviously high flyers last season, doing really, really well. Lost a lot of those kind of big name players. You've got the likes of Keita McDonald, obviously came to us. Maiduku, Armstrong all leaving. So I don't know if there was a bit of it piqued my interest as an outsider looking at how Raith would do so far this season, and doing really, really well, unbeaten in the last 5, of course. So how are you seeing Raith Rovers season going so far?
Yeah, it's been a pleasant surprise for a lot of our fans. We, as you say, we lost a lot of key players in the summer. The main one being Regan Henry, who went down to Forest Green Rovers, who was a sort of playmaker for ourselves, pulling the strings in the middle of the park. But we brought back Dario Zanata and Aidan Connolly, and Christoph Beras came in from Hearts as well. We've got Liam Dickin, who's come from Alloa. A lot of people saw those signings and they were quick to say, this isn't the standard that we need to be getting. We want to move up to the next level, whether it's taking a pop at the promotion playoffs again. A lot of people wrote off those players very, very quickly when we signed them on pre-contracts. And not all of them have worked, because we've had James Keaton's out on loan, obviously a name that you'll be very familiar with ourselves. We've not been able to replicate the form that he's had when he was with Accies. But honestly, those signings have been absolutely fantastic, and they should hold their heads high because they've been excellent for us so far. It's been it's been good so far. Very happy with how we're doing. We're at the right end of the table. John McGlynn's got us playing, for the most part, we've been playing good football. But we've shown also an ability to sort of mix it up as well. So yeah, it's been good so far.
And we had maybe the most exciting game of the championship all season, the first day. 4-4, what a game that was. Brandon and I got in a bit of trouble sitting in the media section that day. That was a good laugh. That went down well. But let's look at Accies. We got a little bit of an injury update, which was nice today. We're hearing that Mihai Popescu possibly back in the team. We've been missing him given his absence. Jamie Hamilton, they're a bit touch and go about whether he'll actually feature. He went off with chest pains, and obviously that had to get checked out to make sure he was actually fit enough to return to training. You know, we've got the names of Scott Martin, Andy Winter getting thrown around again. They've apparently been back in training, so they could maybe feature on the bench, but it doesn't look as if they're close to actually starting. And obviously, Mikko Virtanen as well. Even let's talk about the last few games then. Time wasting, game management, words that have been thrown around non-stop by us on here, and of course in the press as well. That's 2 games in a row, 90 plus minute equalisers.
I'm sorry, but I know this is sacrilege. You're not going to have me back on again, but I have had family responsibilities. I completely missed the Morton game. I didn't see any of it, and I haven't seen any of it. So, but I did hear a lot about it, and I was depressed, obviously, very depressed. Yeah, I mean, and I've heard a lot from my pals about it, obviously, and you know, it's like we can't afford to be like this nervous. Oh dear, oh no, we might actually win. We're in trouble. You just need to keep playing. You should be playing all the way through. And if you're attacking, the other team it's a game at the end. I know this sounds a bit mental, but it is a game. So it's like you play the game, and if you play the game and win, you win the game. But if you stop playing and trying, all right, we'll just try and get time, we'll fall down, we'll this and that. And I don't think there were a couple of really bad moments on Saturday, you know, against Arbroath when Jamie Hamilton went down and, you know, Dick Campbell was, well, I don't know how to put it, lived up to his name, I suppose, and went mental, you know, and then he had a, sorry, that was a bit crude, sorry about that, but you know, he went a bit mental and you know, and he was potentially ill, so you can forgive them for that, but yeah, you knew it, you just knew it. It's like, right, I'm sad enough to set a stopwatch at the second half. And it was getting on for 45, and I thought he's going to add on a lot of time. And it's like a minute and 2 minutes. And I thought we could have lost the game because there was so much injury time. And they looked, oh no. And it's that steely determination that they need to get back, which they have had in some games like Queen of the South, etc. We need to get that every week. Season. And that's the manager's job. So I'd like to see them get out with a bit of confidence. Raith, it's going to be a really tough game. Raith are a really good side. I think we did well to get back to 4-4. I mean, I still don't know how we did it, but they were on fire, and they're good. But hopefully at home, we might just have enough to get something from the game. But we need to start picking up points because, you know, relegation. You know, doing a Thistle. I did think at the beginning of the season it's perfectly possible for us to do a Thistle and go down twice. And I know that might sound negative, but just the way things were going, and you know, we've talked a lot about the negativity around the club. We're not on a kind of high at the moment, but we shouldn't get relegated, but we need to keep picking up points. And even against a team like Raith Rovers, you've got to be looking to try and get something on Saturday. Absolutely, maybe even win. I think we're capable of it. We've got players that could do it, particularly if we can get Kieran McDonald fit. That would make a difference. I don't share your. I think Kyle Monroe's actually potentially a really good player. I don't know what his position is, but I wouldn't be too worried about him. He started off at fullback, did he not, when he first came in?
Yeah, when he first came into the first team, yeah.
Scored a goal at Livingston. You never know. You just never know. But, you know, and I'm more bothered about a central defence with, if I could say it, with, what's his name in it? Ben Sterling.
Ben Sterling off.
That worries me. If we've got Popescu back, hopefully that means he'll not be playing in that position, and that's a good thing as well.
If it's any consolation, our forwards have not been the most free scoring this season. I think our top scorer, I think in league duty, Lewis Vaughan, who played against Accies on the first day and then suffered a 4th ACL injury, has got as many league goals as both Ethan Varian and Matej Poplatnik, our 2 centre forwards that we've got. So if we're going to be scoring goals, it will be, the likelihood is it will come from the wings. So Sonata and Connolly. But yeah, it's interesting to hear about McDonald because he's a player that I do rate really, really highly. We picked him up from Airdrie. He was absolutely fantastic for us. He completely changed the dynamic in our team, just having that ability to get forward and with the ball, and to be able to attack. Obviously, I've only seen him the first day of the season, and he scored 2 goals, and I think he got an assist as well for Andy Ryan as well. But yeah, he's just an excellent player all round, I think. So yeah.
Definitely. Stephen, what you mentioned there has been my biggest frustration the last few games is we are capable of winning them. We just seem to not be able to. The Kilmarnock game, we should have won. The Morton game, we definitely should have won. And in the Arbroath game, we were very capable of winning. Mm-hmm. The frustrating thing for me is, and it was actually, this isn't even I don't want to claim this as my thought, but somebody told me this on social media, it's almost as if we get the first goal, we go ahead and think, shit, we're ahead here. I don't know what to do in this situation. We're so used to chasing games. So the immediate reaction with the squad, and this does come from Stuart Taylor. I'm not kind of saying Stuart Taylor's free of criticism here, but we really should be going on, getting the first goal and killing the game off. You know, we're good enough to push in the first 15, 20 minutes and get the lead. We should continue that, get the second. We shouldn't be sitting back and kind of crossing our fingers and hoping we'll deal with every ball that comes into the box, because that clearly doesn't happen. The Morton game is one of the, 7 minutes added time. Was it a foul? Was it not? Listen, that's by the by. We had chances to kill the game off and we weren't clinical enough. We didn't take them. And being clinical, Brandon, that's something me and you spoke about a lot on the channel, was being more clinical. Andy Ryan, and obviously we've now not get David Moyle for this game either. He's on international duty. Accies player on international duty, so just mental. But that is something we need to get back in this game, and it's going to be a big problem against Raith Rovers, who, if given the chance, will take them.
So the thing that's annoyed me most is, as you say, about being clinical, but we're showing that we can create all these opportunities in the games. We're creating chances. We just don't seem to have that cutting edge to finish any of the chances. Like Josh Mullins having long shots, Andy Ryan's having long shots. We're just, until we get that goal, as soon as we get that goal as well, the Morton game, the Arbroath game, we've scored the goals, and we're talking about time wasting. We're time wasting with 10 minutes to go. We're time wasting with 10 minutes to go in the first half and the second half.
That's what I mean. You just keep playing.
Well, we keep hearing this sentence about progression, and it's fair enough. Stuart Taylor has inherited a load of rubbish, if we're being honest with you. Not the best, but we've still been a team that's been in the top flight for seven years, regardless if we've been the team in that 7 years that's always been on the back foot. You'd think coming down a division, when you go one ahead, you don't just take the foot off the gas. You keep going. You get that second goal. And the thing that bugged me the most about last week is, I think we were the better team against Morton by far. We should have finished that game off extremely much earlier than we allowed it to go on. But the Arbroath game, I don't even think we were the better team. But we've went 1-0 up, so we'll go and finish the game off. It was a carbon copy of Morton, the game. It was a complete carbon copy. And Arbroath deserved the goal, and you ultimately knew it was always coming.
Yeah, that was the thing that we spoke about in the press afterwards, was Dick Campbell's always had teams that are relentless. They will not stop coming at you. And as Brandon said, we had chances in that Arbroath game. I agree with him. I don't think we were the better team. And I would argue actually Arbroath deserved to go on and get the win. But that being said, we had chances to make it 2-0 and kill the game off. I mean, in the 90th minute, Josh Mullins running through one-on-one with Ronnie Hughes in the middle. All he has to do is pick his head up and make the pass, and he doesn't. We have these chances. We're just not taking them, which is so frustrating. So frustrating when you're sitting watching it.
I think it's about confidence, and that's why I thought that it was possible for us to do a Thistle, because the opposite's true as well. If you get on a roll of not doing well, you begin to lose confidence. We need to start getting confident. And a lot of that means leaders on the park. You need leaders on the park that can drive a team forward, like Alec Neil, like Mark McLaughlin, people like that. Easties could be like that, but it's not really always. And I would like to see somebody come in that just took them by the scruff of the neck and put them on. We do have we do have some weaknesses in different places. Goalkeeping's been a real problem for me for a while, and a lot of the confidence in the defence comes out of that, and that concerns me. How many times does a keeper not command his box? And then we've got other people go in there that are not central defenders. I mean, that Arbroath goal, we put Ben Sterling on, it's a free header. It's disappointing, but it's that we can't afford to lose. We're threadbare. We can't afford to lose Jamie Hamilton and Popescu. We just can't. And that I think that the self-belief just goes down a wee bit, and that's why.
Popescu, how's he been in terms of, is he sort of a leader type figure? Is he sort of more on the periphery for Hamilton?
I wouldn't say leader, but he came in. It was an injury at Arbroath that when we lost 4-0, he came in for the last 10-15 minutes. But since then, he's been partnered with Brian Easton. He's actually done very, very well. Kind of ball playing centre back, likes to come out. Has a shaky moment in him. You know, there are times where he tries to turn a striker when they're 1-on-1, and I'm thinking, you're fucking this up. Or he strides through the middle of the park and tries to play a 30-yard ball. It doesn't always come off. But I think our defence is stronger with Popescu in it. You know, we've been deploying Jamie Hamilton, our love child in the podcast, at right back, with Popescu coming in, and that's been a pretty decent back line. I've been very happy with that so far. So listen, I like Popescu. I think he's done well since he's came in. So before we go, guys, as we've done for every guest this season, we ask you for your score predictions. We have a league table for the end of the season. Whichever fan has the most amount of points gets a prize at the end of the season. The prize is yet to be decided, but it will be good. We promise you that. Brandon, we'll come to you first this week. You were confident against Arbroath. Unfortunately, didn't play off. How are you feeling this week?
I'm going to go with 2-0 Raith.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, not much logic behind it, to be fair. But I just think Andy Ryan's not got a full 90 minutes on his own in him. And the fact David Moyes away in international duty, I think along with sort of uncertainty in the defence, which although we might have heard that Popescu might be back for Saturday, that's just a rumour. And I think the people we've got in the bench that would come in for the people that are potentially missing wouldn't be up to the job. I think Raith are unbeaten in 5, as you said, and yeah, I can just see Raith winning 2-0. I think we're undefeated in, 3 games now?
Yeah, 3 games without a loss.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're due a loss. We've not been particularly the best the past 2 games. We've went 1-0 up and we've shut the bed. So I just think yeah.
All right, Robbie, are you as confident in Raith winning as Brandon is?
No, not really. The reason that I say that is mentioning shat the bed. I mean, that first game of the season is probably the biggest case of that you'll ever see in an SPFL game. I think we'll win, but I can see us conceding. So I would maybe go with 3-1 or 3-2 Rovers. All
right, and Stephen, what about your score prediction?
Well, I'm going to completely just forget about my head because I never work. I'm useless at working football out. I don't know. I mean, we've got Popescu back. I don't know whether it's a bit ifs and buts, but if Jamie Hamilton's playing as well, yes, we've lost David Moyo, who is an enigma wrapped up in a mystery. I don't really know. You don't know what you're going to get with him. So that may or may not be a disadvantage. I mean, well, it will be a disadvantage because he's a good target player. And I think he's been, I quite liked him against Arbroath. I thought he was
really good the last 2 games.
Yeah, he's been good. So, but listen, I'm not going to punt against Accies. I'm hardly ever on this thing. I'm not going to go for a Raith win. I'm going to go 2-1 Accies with them. We're 2-0 up, amazingly, and in the 7th minute of injury time, Raith Rovers get a goal, but we still win and we go home happy for a change. How about that? Not based on anything, not based on any logic at all.
That sounds amazing. Unfortunately, Stephen, I'm going to have to agree with other guys. I can see Raith coming off with this one. I'm actually going to go with 2-1 Raith. I think Raith are on a good little run of form, undefeated in 5. As you said, with the uncertainty in our team, we're going to have Andy Ryan up top by himself. We're not sure who's coming in defence. I can't see it being an Accies win, unfortunately. But listen, Robbie, I do hope we do win though. So I apologise for that. But listen,
I won't grudge you that. I won't grudge you that at all.
Guys, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. We really obviously do appreciate it. You can catch us with all our content after the game.